Now, something like this, if you were to just change it into armor around you, then you'd like, boom, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So that is the way to break it, but it's not. I don't think it's really that broken.
I don't think that's break it. I think that's... I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
I'm Nerdarchy Dave.
Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. All right, looks like we got another D&DBeyond homebrew evaluation today.
We do. We're going to be looking at magical rods. We're going to take the top 10. And the way we figure out the top 10 for our list anyway is, or at least the top 10 most popular, and what we're calling popular is anything that people are searching for the most. So we just, go by that ranking, the most views. Apparently, these are the things people wanted to read about. So they've been viewed the most.
Or it's got the most exciting name. I mean, that's, when it comes to magic items, that's the thing that grabs you.
The name.
The name.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because on several of these lists, this one's not really that much different. We've definitely seen items that are really just rehashing of items that already exist. So I guess maybe there's a lot of angry gamers about that particular item, and they're like, "Oh, finally, someone's fixed this," or how did they break it? Maybe, I don't know.
There's always those possibilities.
All right, so I'm going to read through the top 10 list, and the way this video works is I'm going to pull it up on D&DBeyond, but the way these videos work, we go through the top 10, and then we each pick an item, and we read that item and discuss it. Links will be down in the description so that you can go check out the other items if you want to know more about them. So first we got the Rod of Mercurial Form, Bookworm's Nightlight. Then we have Etheric's Revitalizer Rods of Resuscitation, Heartwood Rod, Camper's Respite, Moon Rod, Rod of 7 parts, that sounds vaguely familiar. Rod of the Pack Keeper also sounds vaguely familiar.
+1.
Yeah, +1. The Black Rod of Nessus. And also, is that a legal? Is it? No, that would be Nasus. Thinking of the League of Legend character, looks very Egyptian themed, and then he creates these black circles of death. It's like,
well, that would be pretty cool if he had that.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool, but I don't think so. Thurenbar's Rod. Now, these are all on D&DBeyond. In case we haven't mentioned that yet, you can go over there and check them out. I believe all you need is a free account to check out the homebrew, and you can go check it out, add them to your game, whatever. It's only fair to mention that D&DBeyond is a sponsor of this video, so you can support us by supporting them. Power up your games with D&DBeyond. But there's even more than that. If you want to know more, if you love lists and want to know more, you can head over to nerdarchy.com, where we do have a factor of 3 list for magic rods that Nerder Doug does over there. So basically what we did, but times 3. And then he gives a little write-up for the different parts of it.
All right, so there were a number of interesting rods that were in this assortment of 10, but there were a number that I felt like, they just didn't hit the mark for me personally. So it was a bit tough to figure out which one I was going to pick. So I actually went all the way to the bottom of the list, and I'm looking at the Thurenbar Rod. This is by QF Surf Monkey. It's a common. The Thurenbar Rod is a magical instrument developed by the gnomes of Zilargo. While holding the rod, you can use an action to produce auditory illusions that unerringly replicate the sound of any instrument with which you are proficient, with an effect similar to the Minor Illusion spell, with a sound emanating from the rod. To determine the quality of the performance, make a charisma check with the musical instrument you're replicating. If you're proficient with the Thurenbar Rod itself, you can produce unearthly music unlike any natural instrument. And it's kind of like for that last element that I thought that this was cool. It's a common magic item, so you could give this out almost right away, session 1. So this would be a fun thing to give out for anyone who just happens to have a character that likes music, and there's a number of backgrounds that offer a musical instrument, as well as to any kind of bard or bard-like character.
Well, yeah, I think you can get also, I think Monk offers a musical instrument too. Although I don't know how you become proficient with that rod.
Yeah, I don't know what that's
super specific. If you ever lose that magic item.
So I wasn't certain how that was supposed to work.
I guess it's an idea that it's a much more common item in this GM's world, and when they're playing Eberron, therefore there's more of them around, so that you might have an opportunity to use them. It does not require attunement, I don't believe.
Nope.
So there's that. At least it's not sucking up a attunement slot for something that is more or less, kind of like for flavor and more of a ribbon thing. Yeah, players are crafty. They'll probably find a way to use it. So there is that. But, whether or not you want to dedicate a proficiency slot to it or not is another thing entirely.
So what I would do to kind of fix, what's here is you could be like, instead of saying if you're proficient, you could attune to the rod and be able to produce this unearthly, melody to it. That's what I would do with it, so that once you got later in the game and you needed another attunement slot, it's like, well, I'll just unattune to this, music instrument thing and, go do something else. You could play around a lot with it. You could turn it into a focus, you could bump it up. Like, there's lots of ways that I would kind of wind up scaling something like this if my player really enjoyed it. But as is, I think it's a lot of fun, and, I would use it.
I will say, as something that requires a proficiency slot, and I guess we're going to call that a tool, along the same line, technically for 250 gold and some time spent, you can gain that proficiency. And to me, that would probably be, like, if aesthetically, if I cared about it and I was doing it for flavor reasons, I much rather would do that than have it ever be attuned.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, true.
So that's an option as well. And also it could be like kind of a bit of a story arc. I don't know if I'd require the player to find someone else that knows how to use it or not, because that in itself could be a quest, and figuring out who's going to mentor you.
Well, I mean, you could. I mean, it's a magic item. Maybe you, instead of having the gold cost, just having the time spent, and you wind up having them make rolls, and when they roll poorly, something weird happens, and there's no real control over it. So whether you're looking at the wild magic table or, one of the many wild magic tables that surface on the internet, you could have all kinds of ridiculous fun of, well, be careful while you're training with this thing.
Yeah, I mean, 250 gold in D&D is not, depending on your campaign, but I feel like most campaigns, that's not a big deal anyway now.
Sure.
I think the time is the bigger requirement, and that and trying to find, like, if you have to actually find somebody, that would be the tough part. So I went with Rod of Mercurial Form, and honestly, I only picked it because it made me think of mercurial weapons from 3rd edition, and that's why I started reading. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of interested in this, and it does require attunement. It's very rare. The wielder of this rod can cause it to change shape. As a bonus action, the rod can be turned into any weapon, suit of armor, or other item that fits a 5-foot cube. If changed into a weapon, the wielder is considered proficient with it and gets +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls. So that's pretty cool. That's like, you need a +2 weapon of any kind, you've got it. If you changed into a suit of armor, it forms around you, and the wielder requires no time to don and receive a +1 to their AC. However, they must be proficient in the type of armor that is formed, and the rod can't take the shape of the armor if the wielder is already wearing armor. Just thought of a way to break this. If changed into a miscellaneous object, the item must be able to be contained in a 5-foot cube, but once it's created, its dimensions are no longer restrained to a 5-foot cube, such as a coil of rope or an extendable ladder. The rod reverts to its original form if the wielder drops to 0 HP, or if the wielder ends the transformation, no action required.
So you said you figured out a way to break it, huh?
I did.
All right.
So, maybe not completely break it, but one of the biggest problems with the Tensor's transformation spell, awesome spell, but it gives you proficiencies in armors. That there's no way you're going to ever don before the spell expires, right? With some caveats, like you have to work really hard. Like, once I put on there's no full plate, is there? Once I put on plate mail, contingency, Tensor's transformation, or the helm from this armor, or whatever, something, the left gauntlet, Right. So that you could do something like that, but really, it's really hard. Or, you've already have access to armor somehow, so those don't matter. Now, something like this, if you were to just change it into armor around you, then you'd like, boom, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So that is the way to break it, but it's not. I don't think it's really that broken.
I don't think that's break it. I think that's using an interesting element, and it's quite possible that the designer of the mercurial rod had that particular scenario of like, well, how do you get the most benefit out of Tensor's transformation? So.
Yeah, because like you can't even use magic to do it for the most part because you can't cast spells once you transform.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. And it also made me think of the Rod of Lordly Might. This is a much more versatile version of that, but also kind of more generic and less interesting.
Right.
Because that has like really cool things like, here, do you want a flame tongue? Make it turn it into a flame tongue.
Yeah, the Rod of Lordly Might has like 3 specific things that it can turn into, whereas this is any +2 magic item, any +2 magic weapon.
The internet's going to correct you
+1.
because the Rod of Lordly Might has like at least 8 things. I think it turns into a bunch.
I could remember 3, and that's what I thought it was. So yeah, feel free to
Well, maybe it's 3 weapons because I think it's like sword, spear, and then some kind of like mace or something, right? And then you have a bunch of other uses as well.
But I'm certain they're gonna make a mention down in the comments. But with this particular thing, like any +1 armor, it's useful to, regardless of what character gets a hold of it, they're gonna find something that they can do with it. And I like creative items like that.
Yeah, and also like if you're using the biggest problem with like exotic style weapons, not in 5e as much as previous editions where there were so many of them. Like, yeah, it was cool to fight with a spiked chain, but you're basically never going to find a magic one, right? Unless you have a generous DM where something like this, you drop it in the game and be like, boom, it's +2 spiked chain.
There you go. That absolutely works. So, as an almost honorable mention, the Bookworm's Nightlight, I found, pretty amusing. It's not all that super helpful. It's designed for somebody who likes to read at night. But it, has the ability to produce a little bit of light. It can, if you wind up using all of its charges, it can blow up and, what have you. So I thought that one was, definitely worth a read, but, we like these ones better.
Yeah, let us know in the comments below which your favorite is. Have you made some items and put them over on D&D Beyond? Share them with the Nerdarchy community in the comments below.
While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Go ahead and click on that notification bell. You know the drill.
Quick reminder, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we drop new videos here on the channel, so come on back. But you can't wait till then. No worries. We've got you covered. Up here, there's a card, and you can check out our last top 10 list where we talk about stabs.
So until next time, stay nerdy.